Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Good times for all. There's Zachary Zabala here if you prefer. In this video, we're going to continue our discussion on the complete guide to saving seeds. Awesome book. This is like video 5 maybe of covering this book. It covers 322 vegetables, herbs, flowers, fruits, trees, and shrubs. Really interesting book by Story Publishing, S-T-O-R-E-Y. And I think it's prevalent to know this type of information in these times we're going through. There's a lot of talk of food shortages, and people are really getting more into gardening. And one of the things that might not be out there along with the food are seeds. So learning how to gather your seeds is important. If you don't do it in certain ways and store and preserve them in certain ways, you might not have any seeds to plant next year. So it's a really good book. I've learned a lot doing this. And yeah, so I'm going to keep on sharing them with you. I believe we were getting ready. We're in the C's right now. And I believe we were going to do Swiss chard. We finished with celery, I believe. On the last video. So yeah, we're going to be going into a Swiss chard. One thing I need to correct myself on is the biennial. I've been saying biennial means you can plant it 2 times throughout the year, which isn't incorrect, but when they're saying biennial, it means every 2 years, and it means that in order to get these to seed, to be able to collect the seeds of these plants, they need to go through the winter without dying. In order for them to shoot and produce a flower that creates a seed, a lot of them need to go through a winter, a cold patch or a cold spell. Now this isn't the case in all of them, because we do have cold nights in Indiana, sometimes throughout the summer and the spring. So maybe that does it, I'm not sure, but in order to get some of these to flower, they have to go through a long period, 70, 80 days of chilly. It has to be cold. Not enough to kill them, because a lot of them are annuals. But in order for the seed, yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. Like in the northern states, you'll have to take almost the whole plant and store the plant and then plant it again, and then you can get the seeds off of it. So yeah, there's a lot more to all this stuff than just going out and getting the seeds out of fruits. And it's just a great book. First one I've gotten on gathering seeds, so I really can't compare it to others per se, but yeah, it's a really, really great book. And a lot of the information I'll go and look up and see if other people are saying the same things and whatnot, and a lot of it has been. A lot of it, even the things I don't agree with, I'm seeing other people say about, germinating or putting your seeds in 120 degree Fahrenheit water for 20 minutes before germination. I'm seeing that in other places too. Not that I'm going to try that, but so yeah, a lot of the information that I'm finding in this book, I'm finding in a lot of other places, which tells me that it's at least well researched and not just made up garbage. So without any further ado, we're going to get into the Swiss chard plant out of the book, The Complete Guide to Saving Seeds. Swiss chard. Goosefoot family. First time I've seen that. The Goosefoot family. It's a biennial. Again, like I just explained, that means it's going to take you know, it needs to go through a cold spell in order to produce a shoot that will produce the flower and to gather seeds that are viable. Seed viability, 4 years again, like always, I would question that and put that to a test. When you're spacing for seed saving, now Swiss chard is a type of a lettuce, kind of looks like that right there, and you can plant them real close together. As you can see, these are planted. There's one right next to it, and another one right here. But when you go to collect your seeds, if you're planting a plant to collect seeds for that purpose, you want to do them, it says at least 18 inches apart. So that is way further away than they're doing that you would normally plant it, because you don't have to give it that. But again, when you're using something to gather seeds, I wouldn't mind even putting it in its own garden. Have a little spot, if you have the room, to have a garden that is set aside for, you know, 1 or 2 if you need them to pollinate each other, of each type of plant that you want to gather seeds from, away from all your other stuff where you can plant them much closer, because they need so much more room. Or set it aside, you know, have your row of plants or whatnot, the closer spacing that you would normally use, and then maybe another row off the end of all your rows, have your one for collecting seeds. Or, I mean, some of them say to have 6 to 10 plants to collect seeds from. So it's really, it depends on how much you love that plant and how much space you're willing to, you know, allow for that one type of plant. The flowering, yeah, and on this one it says at least 6 plants, the Swiss chard, to collect seeds from. Swiss chard is a biennial crop that flowers after a cool period. The flowers are perfect and held on panicles. Now, when they say perfect, I was looking through this book and it has some neat illustrations to show you what they're talking about. And I want to show it to you. Okay, here's a biennial cycle. All right, you start off with a ripe seed, can be collected in fall and saved for spring planting. So you bought some seeds from the store and you're going to plant them. So you plant your seeds, you get your cabbage or your biennial crop, and then the plants are dug and stored over winter in a pit or root cellar. Okay, the whole plant. It's not just a part of it. They take the whole plant and put it in there. Then they replant it. Each plant is replanted in the garden in the spring. And then it says it will be able to produce that long stem that flowers at the top. Now again, I said I've seen this all happen in 1 year. All happen in, you know, just the springtime. But I have, where I was at, it got chilly at night. It got cold. So, I don't know. I've seen it with kale. I've seen it with, I grew a few different types of leaf lettuce. I've seen it with, I don't know if the spinach, but yeah, you have to keep clipping the flower. I've seen it with sorrel. I've seen it with a few different things where it happens all in one season. But yeah, they're usually saying it takes a whole year to get your plant to be able to produce the seed. So that's what biennial means. Now when they're talking about a perfect flower, where is it at? Okay, here we go. Pollination, no. Growth, nope, this isn't it. Okay, here. You have a perfect flower. That means it has both the male and the female parts. So a perfect flower can pollinate itself. A perfect flower has both male and female parts, but may not have all the non-sexual parts. Such flowers are also called bisexual or hermaphroditic. Okay, so yeah, they're not necessarily self-fertile. They may not be able to fertilize themselves and produce seeds. Many plants with perfect flowers are self-sterile and thus require pollen from another plant in order for fertilization to occur. But that's what they mean when they say perfect. Not perfectly symmetrical or anything, but it has both the male and the female parts. And then they call it imperfect to only have, wow, isn't that weird? Only one sexual organ is imperfect. And then there's pistillate or staminate is just a flower or male flower, and it doesn't have the pistils. And then a pistillate, also called a female flower, this contains pistils but not stamens. So that's what they mean when they say a perfect flower. Let's get back to our Swiss chard. Oh, I'm in herbs. Here we go. So Swiss chard is a biennial crop that flowers after a cool period. The flowers are perfect and held on panicles. Swiss chard is wind pollinated. Its pollen is light and fine and easily carried on the wind. No. Okay. Isolation requirements. So if you want to keep an heirloom, you want to keep this plant to where it does not cross-pollinate with another plant. For the Swiss chard, chances are that none of your gardening neighbors, near or far, will have chard in bloom at the same time you do. I don't know why they would assume that. Thus, as long as you are saving seeds from only one variety of chard, you don't need to worry about keeping your chard isolated while it's flowering. If you want to experiment with saving seeds from several varieties of chard, set up a sequence of saving a different variety each year. The seeds should remain viable for several years as long as you store them properly. If you do decide to bag or cage your chard, put the enclosure around 6 or more plants to ensure adequate pollination, because chard is sometimes self-incompatible. Sometimes. So, maybe different varieties of chard. Some are self-pollinating, some are not. I don't know. Okay, 1/2 to 2 miles. Again, just insects will go all over the place. After most of the flowers have turned brown, remove the stalk and further cure in a cool, dry location for 2 to 3 weeks. So you have to wait till the flowers totally turn brown. No more of the pretty color in it. And then you remove the whole stalk and let it set, cure, in a cool, dry location. Some are warm, damp. Some are cool and damp. So you really need to know what you're doing with certain seeds. This book is so full of this information. I love it. Cleaning your seeds. Chard. Remove the seed balls. These are actually dry, shriveled fruits from the stalk by hand, or place the stalk in a bag and flail. Then winnow to separate the seeds from plant debris. Soak seeds in water overnight. Okay, this is seed treatment. Before planting to leach the germination inhibitor found in the seed's coat. Wow. So I wonder, what if you just don't remove it from that thing and leave it how it would be naturally? Because out in nature, seeds can lay for years. A dandelion, I think it's up to 7 years. It can lay out in the soil, in the sun, in the rain, year after year after year, and not germinate. and then all of a sudden it does. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some testing, but it doesn't say to do it at so many degrees temperature or this or that. It just says soak them in water overnight. And I have heard that before with other, I think, radishes and maybe turnips. I'm not sure. Optimum range for soil temperature for germination is from 50 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 to 29 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature is 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. There are usually several true seeds within each seed ball. So each seed ball you plant will produce a cluster of seedlings. Swiss chard is usually direct seeded to the garden, but may be transplanted if you want. Is there anything after this? Okay, the overwintering of Swiss chard. Swiss chard plants usually need to survive through the winter and into a second season of growth to produce a seed stalk. The technique for overwintering varies depending on the severity of winter in your area. If you live in a cooler part of the country, plant chard midway through the growing season. Then in the fall, carefully dig up the plants, taking care not to damage the roots, as wounded roots are susceptible to rot. Select for superior qualities such as leaf shape, petiole, coloring, and size. Be sure to save more than 6 plants in case some don't survive the winter. Ah, that makes sense. That might be why they tell you to keep so many plants. Awesome, Lucas. Yeah, he's saying that his chard has lasted throughout the whole winter. I've had kale make it throughout the whole winter in northern Indiana at 41 degrees north latitude, where it was probably negative 10 degrees. I just cover them up with straw. And yeah, there's some plants out there that are real hardy. And if you're in a warmer climate where it doesn't freeze super hard, you can get away with it. Remove the tops to within an inch or two of the root. So you pretty much cut off the whole plant except for the little nubs. Store the roots in a box of moist sand placed in a cool, dark, damp spot such as a basement or root cellar. I like that box of sand. Sand will keep the temperature the same all the way around it. A lot of my root cellaring books talk about using sand. About 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. If you live in a warmer climate, plant chard at the time you usually would for eating. When you last harvest your chard at the end of the growing season, leave 1 to 2 inches of stem attached to the roots. Let the roots overwinter right in the garden, covering them with a good mulch. And then at year 2, if you've overwintered roots indoors, replant them in the garden in spring. Discard any that are damaged, rotted, or shriveled. If you overwintered roots in the garden, remove the mulch once you see new growth beginning. The plants will produce some leaves first and then send up a seed stalk. Do not cut any leaves for eating. Remember, these plants are just for seeds. Let them stand to nourish the plant. Every time you cut one of those leaves off, it's like you getting cut. Then your body has to work to produce, the scab and do all that stuff and slowly push that out off your body. Well, the same thing happens to plants. And if you want this for gathering seeds, you want to not harm that plant in any way throughout its whole life. Chances are they will be tough and bitter anyway. Yeah, once a plant reaches its maturity and really gets through, at least some of them, the leaves they lose all their sweetness. A lot of the sugars are leached out of them and they're a lot more bitter. And that was it for the Swiss chard. I guess I'll just keep going with this, with the next one. We don't need to skip over any of them. I've never grown this. It's chervil, they call it. And it's a salad. Here is the picture down here. It's part of the parsley family. It is an annual, so that means it only has one cycle. It will not make it through the winter. Seed viability, 3 years. Again, I'd put that to test. Spacing for seeds, 8 inches to a foot. So not as wide as all the other ones. Oh, that's awesome, Voynich. Yeah, it's... So there you go. There's a... thank you for sharing that, Voynich. He said he cut them, put the roots back in the ground, or... yeah, and they grew right back. It's a chervil is a 1 to 2 foot tall annual plant with small, self-pollinating, white, perfect flowers held in compound umbels. The isolation requirements to keep it a heirloom, or at least that same exact plant. Insect cross-pollination among varieties of chervil may occur. Use alternate day caging to prevent this. You may also want to hand pollinate as described in the carrot entry. So yeah, again, very hard to do. The whole alternate day caging, I'm assuming that's on this day you would cover this plant, and on this day you would, you know, on that day, this one you could take off. And then the next day you would cover this plant and uncover this one. Now if you had a whole bunch of them, more than 2, I don't see how you could do it. So again, trying to keep your seeds the exact same, with the same DNA structure or whatnot, the same exact same plant, it's not easy to do. Chervil umbels shatter easily. That's the little things that hold the seeds. Either bag individual heads after pollination or pull entire plant as the seeds ripen and hang them to dry over a tarp to collect fallen seeds. Winnow excess plant material. Germination. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about putting these in water at all for the cleaning or storage. It doesn't even really tell you temperatures, anything, cool, dry, wet, dry. So the seeds must be pretty hardy. Germination. Optimum soil temperature for germination is 50 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow, that's one of the narrower ranges we've seen so far. 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. Seeds need light for germination, so surface sow them only. Wow, that's the first time we've seen that too. Oxygenated water. Oh, interesting. Thank you. Will germinate most seeds within 24 hours. Yeah, and these say to surface sow them because they actually need the light. They need sunlight to germinate. That's the first time that's been mentioned in this book so far, that of the plants we've covered. Transplanting, it is typically direct seeded to the garden. But again, if you do transplant, be very careful of the roots. If it has a nice root system, especially if it's all wrapped around and around the inside of your container, I like to spread those out very gently. Make sure none of the oils from your hand get onto the roots. I like to cover my hands in a thick layer of dirt. Really rub the dirt in there and get your hands nice and dirty. Don't worry at all, it'll wash off. But yeah, don't get the oils on your hands onto your roots. It can stunt them and hurt them, but you really want the roots to be kind of opened up. You don't want them all jammed up and together when you put it into the soil. And that's it for the chervil salad. Not a whole lot of information on that one. That was the least covered as far as any data out of all of them so far. Next we will cover the chickpea. Egyptian pea, chickpea, garbanzo, and the gram. it's called in different places. Part of the legume family. It's also an annual. Seed viability, 3 years. I would question all that stuff. Spacing for seeds, 1 to 2 feet. It's an annual plant with a flower that are perfect and self-pollinating. Again, perfect, it has the male and the female parts of the plant. Isolation requirements. Some crossing of different chickpea varieties will occur due to insect activity. If more than one variety will be flowering simultaneously, cage the plants from which you want to save seeds. Recommended isolation distance is 1/2 mile. Again, it's not an easy thing to do. Let me know how it goes if you try it. Seed collection. Withhold water after pods have set. Wow, I've never heard that yet. So these would probably, pull entire plants if you live in a damp area and hang them to dry in a warm, dry spot. Wow, I've never heard this yet. That just doesn't sound right to me. But again, if it needs the warm, dry, or else it may rot real easily. I've never seen that yet. Each pod will contain 1 or 2 seeds, but okay, so for seed collection of the chickpea, which is a legume, withhold water after pods have set. Pull entire plants if you live in a damp area and hang them to dry in a warm, dry spot. Interesting. Okay, crop alert. If you have sensitive skin, wear gloves when handling chickpea plants. In some people, contact with the plant causes a rash. It's the first time I've seen a crop alert like that where it wasn't for the plant, but for the people tending the plants. Interesting. So chickpeas, if you're growing chickpeas in your garden and you notice that your hands after you get done gardening start itching and you might be getting a rash, it could be the chickpeas. Very interesting. Seed cleaning, flail, and winnow as you would any type of bean. See the bean entry. Beans are real hardy. They're real, once they set and they're dried out and everything, I mean, they are very, very, it's a tough seed. Optimum soil temperatures for germination of the chickpea is 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 to 29 degrees Celsius, so warmer. You can get a soil temperature thermometer for about $20. They're not too bad. It's a good idea to know the temperature of your soil if you're going to be doing this kind of stuff. No, right now I am in South Carolina. I love northern Arkansas though. I went through there going from Missouri down to Louisiana. And once you get out of northern Arkansas, it kind of gets boring and there's not much out there. I don't want to say boring. Back in the mud. But no, northern Arkansas was just gorgeous. I loved it. I had a really good time, a really good feeling out of northern Arkansas, in the woods there and stuff. Just a beautiful place. So transplanting your chickpeas. They're usually direct seeded to the garden and do not transplant well. Interesting. Yeah, most of my beans that I plant, I always direct soil. And that is it for the chickpea. So some of these, they cover a lot more, but like again, it said, refer to what we covered with the beans. I think that was the second or third video. I should really put, I'm sorry, I'm so lazy and don't put descriptions on my videos and stuff like that. But if you would like me to go over something again, like it just said, look into the bean, and there's something you want, if you'd like to hear about that, just shout it out. Oh, awesome. Ozark Gardening. Heck yeah. Yeah, this is The Complete Guide to Saving Seeds. Story Publishing. Really, really good book. When I hear something new in here, which I've learned a lot out of this. And I'll go and look that up and see if, other books are saying that, other people are applying these ideas, and I'm finding them in a lot of places. So I like this book. Next, we'll do the Whitloff Chicory. Whitloff Chicory, Belgian Endive, Blue Sailors, Radicchio are some names that are used. It is part of the sunflower family. This will be the first plant that we're covering that's from the sunflower family. It's a perennial, treated as biennial. So maybe the winters are a little rough if it gets real cold, and you may have to do some tending for storing the plant over a cold spell so you can get it to shoot and create the seeds. Again, northern Indiana, maybe I was just at 41 degrees north latitude. Maybe I was right in that sweet spot, but I had lettuces that were shooting and flowering in 1 year. And, I transplant them in the spring, and they were from seeds from a nursery. And by the summertime, I would have, I'd be cropping the tops off, and so I can get more food from it. But yeah, I could get seeds in a year. So I don't know if that is like that everywhere. Obviously, it probably isn't. But yeah, the cold nights in the spring and the cold nights in the fall may have done it. Oh, cool. Indoor banana plants. I've never tried that. I had a buddy in northern Indiana who he had an orange, he still does, I'm assuming, has an orange tree. It's only maybe 3 feet tall, produces little green oranges that never really ripen because it doesn't have enough sunlight. But the tree, he does have a light for it to keep it alive, and he just loves the plant. It's one of his buddies. It's always, yeah, it's pretty cool. Hello, Sticky. Okay, the flowering of the chicory, the Whitloff. Chicory has self-incompatible perfect flowers. So it does not pollinate itself, but it does have the perfect flowers, the male and the female. Cross-pollination is usually accomplished by insects. Isolation requirements. Various chicories, including weedy species, will intercross, and chicory can be fertilized by endive. If you're growing more than one variety of chicory, or you're concerned about crossing with nearby weedy chicory, then use alternate day caging or bag and hand pollinate flowers as described in Chapter 2. Recommended isolation distance, ½ mile. Again, I've never tried that. I've never tried, keeping doing an heirloom of a certain variety. I'm definitely going to, though. I'm definitely going to start, and keeping notes. I'm horrible at keeping notes. And as much as I like to think I can keep it all up here, there's so much of this stuff, this information that can be, very helpful if you have all this different data, the soil temperature, the amount of rainfall, how much you're watering them, all these different things. The amount of sunlight can change on an area. With trees growing all the time and this and that, maybe it's not getting the exact same amount of sunlight. All these different things can really help you comprehend your plants a lot better. And knowing these things and creating a relationship with them is the best way to truly understand them. And it's hard. These, the cycles take time, and sitting there for hours and trying to watch the sun and watch the clock and things like that. It's time consuming, and it takes a lot of love. No, I never yell at my plants. Never, never, never. I encourage them. I ask them, grow big and strong for me, and I'll take care of you. I'll keep all the things that want to come and eat you. Yeah, it is. It's gorgeous here. I'm in North Carolina, right on the North Carolina, South Carolina border, um, in God's country. It's just gorgeous. Yes, and composting is so important. Keeping all your stuff and reusing it, it's all food. And that's why the floor of the forest is so rich and fertile, because all those leaves fall down and decompose and turn into, that's gold. That is black gold right there. So yeah, seed collection, for your chicory or whitloaf, stop watering when most of the flowers have set and allow plants to acnes to dry in the field. They should be firm, dry, and brown as possible before harvest. So it doesn't say to it says to stop watering. It doesn't tell you to pull the plant. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Um, Definitely given your plants, I mean, they release their aromas. There's a lot of things that happen when you make contact with your plants, and it strengthens them. It's like you stretching. It gives them room to grow almost. And I'm not saying bend them and snap them or anything like that, but touching your plants and allowing them to. Now, there was an organic gardener that lived down the road from me when I was up there in northern Indiana, and he started working at Monsanto. They sent him to school, all kinds of stuff, and when he realized what they were doing, he quit and became an organic gardener. He has a 200-acre organic farm. Um, he only farms about 40 acres of it at a time. But he used to do things to plants that was just, it looked like he was killing them. He would go, like, you have your stalk. Here, let me open up the book. You have your stalk right here, right? This is the stalk of the plant. It's much bigger. All right, Nemo. Welcome, brother. Welcome the new day. Happy early life. And so here's the stalk. And say the ground is like, okay, the ground is right here. This is the ground level. He would put his hands even like around the stalk and pull away dirt, a big bunch of dirt, and to where you can like see the roots. Then he'd take the whole stalk and shove it down in there, like bending it a little bit and cracking the inside, not breaking the skin, but breaking this, like your bone, breaking the bone of the plant. And for about 3 days, that plant looked like it was going to die. The leaves all started not falling off, but drooping and sagging. The whole plant just looked tired, like it didn't have any water. It looked real rough. But then on like day 4, it had all kinds of new leaves popping out of it and growing out of it, and the stalk was like twice as thick. Now, I can't do that to my plants, not to that extreme. That just seems a little too much tough love for me. But it does, I mean, plants heal themselves just like we do, and going through that thing, it made it create that knuckle where that break was. Like if you'll break a bone, you'll get like this bone right here that I broke. There's that big bump right there where the two bones grew back together. It made like a big nugget. Yeah, yeah. If you just squeeze a little bit, that's what exactly. That was a great comment. Yeah, just you know, You don't want to go hitting them and swiping them and, but touch your plants. Move them. Give them, let them know you're there with more than just your words. And they'll respond. It does. It helps them. It gets them, it helps them grow stronger. It's tough love. Just like our parents have to do to us sometimes, this is the same thing. It's tough love. Not hurting them, it's making them stronger. So, seed cleaning of the chicory. Place seed heads in a bag, flail, and winnow the extra plant material. Or you can leave the seed head intact for storage and winnow just prior to planting. It's the first time they've said that, where you can just leave the seed head, the whole thing in contact, and then, and then flail it right before you go to plant. Germination, optimum temperature for sowing is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. That's the first time I've seen that. It doesn't say from this temperature to this temperature. The optimum temperature is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, period. If seeds do not germinate, stratify them for 4 weeks and return to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. Is that sun? You don't need to look at my ugly mug anyway. 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. Interesting. Transplanting chicory is usually direct seeded straight to the garden. Now, crop alert. Chicory is an invasive, I don't like saying this, I apologize, weed in some areas. I don't like that word. That is the only 4-letter word I cringe when I say. But yeah, chicory is an invasive plant in some areas. Why can't they just call it a plant? Why do they have to say that word? Ugh. I lost a little tiny bit of respect for this book with that right there. And that's it for the chicory, the Witloof. All right, now we're going to get back into some of the mustard family here. We've covered quite a bit of the mustard family, and this one will be collards. It is a biennial. Again, it needs a cold stint to create a shoot that will create a seed. A viable seed, at least. Seed viability. This is very interesting. Unknown. Haven't seen that yet in this book. Collards, seed viability, unknown. Wow, spacing for seed saving. You keep your rows at least 3 feet apart and 18 to 24 inches within a row. So you really want a nice, you need some area, a little bit of ground to save your collard seeds. Again, that's for the plants that you're saving seeds. I know, that sun is bright, isn't it? They're closely related to the cabbage and require similar treatment to that of cabbage for seed production and collection. Refer to cabbage entry for details. Cabbage, I believe, was episode 1, the very first seed one I covered. The one difference in seed saving protocol between cabbage and collards is the timing of hot water treatment of seeds to kill pathogens. Again, this doesn't sound right to me, but if you do have a lot of seed-borne diseases and you're having trouble saving seeds, maybe you would want to try this. Soak collard seeds for just 20 minutes in water held at 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius. We also want to mention here that it's okay to take a light harvest of leaves from collard plants intended for seed production. So it doesn't say that you have to not disturb this plant, that it's gonna produce the seeds. Wow, collards are different. Unknown seed viability. It needs to be planted further apart than most that we've seen so far. Um, there's a specific thing about the soaking seeds, and it's okay to harvest some of the leaves from the plants that you're collecting seeds from. In all the other plants, it said not to do that. So the collards are definitely different. And that's it for the collards. I think we'll do one more here. Maybe two. Corn. We'll just do one. Corn, it looks like there's quite a bit of information here on corn. So yeah, I've planted corn many times. It grows very well up there in Indiana. Loves water. Loves nice irrigated soil. And, that doesn't hold water. Fields that tend to puddle up sometimes, the corn doesn't grow nearly as well. Really, when the soil is nice and sand, it grows great in sand. The corn that I grew, I just put a lot of horse manure, lime, and straw down into the soil, and then would use the compost and horse manure every other week right along, and my corn would grow great in straight sand. So this is sweet corn. Z-maize variety, rugosa, or Z-maize variety, second blah blah blah, popcorn, flint corn, dent corn. This is covering all these different families. It's part of the grass family. Now this is the first time we've covered any plant that is coming out of the grass family. It is an annual, so it lives its cycle and is all done within 1 year. The seeds are all harvestable that very same year. Seed viability 2 years. I'm not buying that because I've grown corn that was older than 2 years old. So I don't know. Save seeds from as many plants as possible. Flowering of the corn. Corn plants are annuals and monoecious. The tassels are the male inflorescence. The silks are actually stigmas. They are covered with tiny hairs and take part of the female inflorescence. What we call the ears, or that's what you call the ears. The silks are receptive to pollen along most of their length. And they're not really showing any pictures of the, like when you get the corn and it's still in the husk, and you break it, tear it open, and there's all those little strings all over it. Well, the tassel's removed. You don't get to see that from that little thing. The tassel comes out at the top of the plant, not each individual corn husk. But these little strings grow up, and then all the seeds grow within that. But all those hairs, I guess, are the female part, and then they call it detasseling corn. And I've done this. We used to go do it for charity. Farmers that didn't have all the special equipment and this and that, you just go through the top and you run your hand up and grab the seeds and pull them and break them off that top part so they fall down and pollinate everything. And farmers would have you come out and they'd have big things of apple cider and this and that, maybe hot dogs or something like that, hamburgers, some kind of like a picnic type thing. But you'd go into their farm and help detassel their corn. Now they paid a lot of children to do this stuff back in the day too. That was one of the jobs. You were 13, 14, 15, around that age, 16. You could go and make some money by working for the farmers and detasseling corn. Now a lot of things are so automated and machines do everything. But I remember that stuff. That was fun times. Good times playing out there in the corn. Um, the silks are receptive to pollen along most of their lengths. The corn cob is a receptacle for the ovaries, which will eventually become kernels. Tasseling occurs about 3 weeks after planting, depending on variety and geographic location. Corn is wind pollinated, and pollen must land on each silk to fertilize the one ovule attached to it. So wow, so all those little strings, they go down and they attach to the center part. And for each kernel of corn that you eat, there was a piece of pollen came down and touched that little hair sticking out the top and went and made that kernel of corn. Wow, I had no idea that's how it happened. Poor tip fill occurs when the silks at the tip of the ear fail to protrude from the husk until after pollination has occurred and when high temperatures kill either the pollen or the silks. Now we've all seen that. You go to eat your corn on the cob, and at the very end, all the seeds are shriveled up and not really, you don't even eat them. They're just like not a kernel of corn. It's just the little white things, that little square looking things almost. So those are the ovaries that, for whatever reason, the silk was either, had all the other silks around it and the pollen couldn't get to it, or the heat killed the silk. Wow. Oh, no problems, Nemo. It happens to us all. I'll get him here. Sorry about that, Ozarks. You're unhidden, friend. Yeah, we're a lot of us do a lot of listening and working at the same time. I am very guilty of the same thing, Nemo, so don't worry. I've actually asked Baldini, because I was doing a lot of work at the time he was coming on when I was out there in Denver. I asked him to unwrench me because I kept banning people from the chat having the phone in my pocket. So yeah, Ozark, you're not banned or anything. It was just an accident. No worries, friend. Yes, in order to grow the kernels, you have to have that pollination. Yeah, I didn't. That was, wow. Interesting. If there are off-type plants in your stand, either remove them completely or remove the tassels so they don't contribute pollen to your breeding efforts. Okay, isolation requirements for corn. I bet this is going to be huge. Wow, this is the biggest isolation requirement thing I've seen so far for sure. Corn varieties will cross-pollinate, and sweet corn, popcorn, flint corn, and dent corn will all cross-pollinate. If you're planting a mixed stand of corn, select varieties and types that have different ripening seasons. Ah, very good idea. Putting in tall plants, such as sunflowers, between different varieties may help prevent cross-pollination. Recommended isolation distance is 1 mile. If isolation by time or distance isn't possible, you will have to take matters in hand and assist with pollination, as described in hand pollinating corn. That's what I was talking about before, going and doing the detasseling at certain times. Maybe that's why they do it. A grow channel. This is an information channel. I believe learning how to save our seeds in this time is viable information right now. And the more we know about it, for people wanting to, grow their own food and know what's in their food and where their seeds actually came from, this is where we get this type of information, and I've learned so much doing these. I'm loving this, you guys. This is awesome. But yeah, no, the channel it's just an information channel. I cover all kinds of things. Okay, where was I? Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's why farmers would have us go out there and pollinate on at certain times, or detassel their corn at certain times. Maybe there's other corn that they know would cross-pollinate with it, that the tassels are just starting to come up, and you don't want that corn that was planted maybe 2 weeks after yours to be pollinating your plants. So you go and pollinate your plants a little bit early, a week or two before their plants are ready to even start pollinating. That's that's awesome. That's man, I love it. Keep in mind that it's best to avoid letting corn plants self-pollinate, which would increase the inbreeding depression that is a problem with corn. One way to prevent self-pollination is by using corn pollination bags, which are readily available from gardening supply companies and through the internet. You can use plain brown lunch bags, but plan to replace them if it rains. Water-resistant, non-waterproof bags are best. So you want the plant to be able to breathe. You don't want it to be waterproof, but water-resistant. Identify alternate rows of plants to be the pollen donors and seed producers. Bag the tassels of the female seed producers and the young ears of the male pollen donors and allow for normal wind pollination. So bag the tassels of the female seed producers and the younger ears of the male pollen donors and allow for normal wind. Okay. I'm not sure what they're saying there. Identify alternate rows of plants to be the pollen donors and seed producers. How can you allow for normal wind pollination if they're bagged? I'm sorry. Sorry for the just not making too much. Okay, this method may also be used to force a cross between two varieties. Maybe they're talking about bag them together. If you prefer, you can leave the ear of the pollen donor plant unbagged so that they'll be pollinated and develop to harvest for eating. But be sure to tag them to make sure you don't accidentally collect them for seed saving instead. Okay, so if you want to, yeah, but if in order to create the seed, it has to be pollinated. We've established that. I don't know. I don't know what they're saying here. This is very, yeah, here, I'll just read the whole paragraph. I won't stop, and you make of it what you will. Identify alternate rows of plants to be the pollen donors and seed producers. Bag the tassels of the female seed producers and young ears of the male pollen donors, and allow for normal wind pollination. This method may also be used to force a cross between two varieties. If you prefer, you can leave the ear of the pollen donor plant unbagged so that they'll be pollinated and develop to harvest for eating, but be sure to tag them to make sure you don't accidentally collect them for seed saving. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it. Seed collection of corn. A corn seed is a indehiscent fruitlet called a caryopsis. Corn seeds sometimes germinate on the plant under wet conditions. Vivipary. Select ears for such desired characteristics as size, early bearing, and tolerance to drought or temperature conditions. The uppermost ear is often the largest. Ears are usually ready to be harvested for seeds from 4 to 6 weeks after they have reached eating stage. So you leave them on the plant. Again, this is one of those, like, remember our tomatoes and our tomatillos, you could pick and harvest for seeds while the fruit was ripe. Well, these, you want it to be 4 to 6 weeks after you would have harvested for eating. In short season locales, pick ears when the husks are brown. If seeds are mature, a light freeze shouldn't hurt them. But do harvest before a hard freeze for best seed quality. In longer season locations, allow ears to dry on the plant. So you don't even pull it till all those seeds in there are completely dried out. Then cut the entire stalk and shock it along with others right in the garden for a couple of weeks to be sure the ears are fully dried. Sorry about that. After harvesting, pull back the husks to expose the seed. Hang to dry further indoors in a cool location until completely dry, 2 weeks or longer. So a minimum of 2 weeks after you peel this brown dried husk back off your corn, you hang it up and let it dry for another at least 2 weeks, possibly longer. Seeds that are not completely cured may heat in storage, reducing germination percentages. Husk the ears and place them on a screen to dry for another couple of weeks. So another couple weeks after you get the seeds off of the husk, you let them dry for another couple weeks. Then twist the ear or rub together to release the hard, dried kernels into, husk the ears. So pull all the husk completely off the ears. I guess that's what it's meaning. And place them on a screen to dry for another, you've already pulled back the things. Now you're husking it. You're going to break that husk off and just have your corn fruit there. And then place on a screen and dry for a couple more weeks. Then twist the ears or rub two together. So put it in your hand, and the kernel should just fall right off. Or rub two together. For large quantities, mechanical corn shellers are available. Seed cleaning and storage. Winnow any plant debris. Store seeds in a cool, dark place in paper bags. I think we've seen that with a couple other seeds. Carrots said to put them into little paper bags, stuff like that. So remove any debris and then a cool, dark place you want. Seed treatment. Many commercial producers treat corn seeds with synthetic fungicides, especially when they're sowing corn seed in cold soil. If you've had problems with corn seedling emergence in the past, be sure the soil is fully warm before planting. When you go to germinate your seeds, hold on, I want to read that one. Sorry. Some type of purpose bag like burlap. And once pollen. Yeah, possibly Nemo. That makes sense. Yeah, he was talking about the isolation requirements for keeping them separated. If you've had problems with corn seedling emergence in the past, be sure the soil is fully warm. So germination, optimum soil temperature for germination ranges from 60 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 to 35 degrees Celsius. The minimum soil temperature for sowing seeds is 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. Do not sow too early in the season or the seed will rot in the ground. So make sure your soil temperature hits a certain spot and it's going to stay above 50 degrees Celsius. Again, you can get a soil thermometer for pretty cheap, 20 bucks. Transplanting. Corn is not usually transplanted. If you live where the growing season is short, use peat pots or similar containers for growing the transplants so that they can be placed in the ground without disturbing the roots. Yeah, I've never transplanted corn. I think I've seen corn in the little things you can buy that are already started, but it's not real common. People don't put a lot of them out there. Like the tomato plants, you'll have, rooms full of tomato plants, pepper plants. Um, there's a nursery actually right around here. Oh, I feel Piedmont Nurseries, I think it's called. Oh, I'm gonna have to go. I forget it. It's a South Carolina, near the Spartanburg area. 2 years ago, just Jack and his family, we purchased some starters from there. But I had never seen such a beautiful, and they deliver anywhere in the country. Delivery is free. Actually, since there are some gardeners in here, I would like to share this with you guys. Um, this is a great family-owned business. He worked there his whole life with his grandfather, and sorry, I'm going inside. I'm going to be a little bit quieter. But he grew up working in this place, barefoot, running around, taking care of plants. And yeah, it's a family-owned business. They're all about non-GMO heirlooms, keeping the seeds, plants all healthy and strong. And yeah, and I'm real big on trying to promote, family businesses and stuff like that. And I know I have some of the literature that he gave me. Oh. No, not the kiddos. No, if I had children, they'd be up working out in the garden with me right now. Oh, here it is. Well, I was right. Piedmont. P-I-T Farm and Garden. It's in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The phone number there is 864-583-1443. I believe there's PiedmontFarmandGarden.com. Yeah, established since 1969. Family-run business. I had never seen, I think it was 200 plus different varieties of tomatoes and over 120 different types of peppers. There was all kinds of different squashes and zucchinis, and it was the most amazing place. I was in heaven. I didn't want to leave, like, ever. I was like, okay, I'm just here now. Yeah, the variety of plants that they had, and okay, I can start talking normal again now. Sorry about that. The family atmosphere that they had there at the place was just beautiful. And hey Anthony, check out Hemp Alchemy. He's been putting out a lot of great videos lately. He gets all this stuff, the alchemy involved in all this stuff, the comprehending nature and how simple a process it is that we have to put into it, really. It's mostly love and intent. I'm not saying it's easy work, but we all can comprehend how to do it. And he explains it very, very well in his videos. Yeah, I've learned so much from this gentleman. So please check out his channel there, Hemp Alchemy. I know his last channel was almost impossible to find because the information is so real that, and this is stuff that they really suppress. Hey, there's Uncle Walt. What's going on, cuz? But yeah, like you would type his name in perfectly and search just channels, and it would not pop up. You could go through all of them. It would name anything that had THC involved in it. And his channel name was THC Anthony back then. Even with a break in between the A and the Anthony, and you would put it in perfect, exactly how he does it. And even, it would say, are you searching for, or search instead for, in what you typed, it would do one of those. And even when you hit that, it still would not pop up. So that tells you how viable the information is that this gentleman has been sharing. They don't want you knowing, that your food is your medicine is your food. That's one of his mantras that is just, it's such a beautiful thought and a beautiful way to be. But yeah, not THC Anthony, yeah, Nature Way, yeah, Hemp Alchemy. Alchemy is all capitalized. Go check out his channel. It's just full of truth, I'll say, full of truth, because he covers different things. And yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. I hope you're having a blessed day, friends. Hey, Winston. All right, now we're getting a crop alert for the corn. Corn is usually direct seeded, but if you live in short season location and intend to save corn seed, you may have to start your seed early and transplant to the garden. Again, I was in northern Indiana, 41 degrees north. People up in Michigan even grew corn, a couple degrees north of me, so I'm not sure how short of a growing season they're talking, but we have not the longest growing season up there, but corn does fine. If it has, what is it? Maybe 90 to 120 days, I think it is, somewhere right in there. Depending on your, there's different types of corn. But yeah, we don't have any problem growing it up there. So yeah, that's why I never saw people really doing this. You'd see it every once in a while, certain places, but never at any of the nurseries did they do corn that I went to. You'd see it at like Home Depot or Lowe's and stuff like that. They would sell it, but none of the places that were, they would sell you corn seeds all day long. They'd have big vats of them, just a big basket full of different types of seeds, and onions and everything, potatoes, all kinds of stuff. Those are my type of places, the mom and pop, do it yourself, natural. Yeah, sweet corn is great. What is it called? I think it has pink in the title. Oh, there's a few different types of sweet corn that are just so sweet. You can just eat them, no joke, right off the cob without cooking it, without adding anything to it. You just crack that thing open and just start eating it without even, you might want to wash it off a little bit, but they are pretty protected in their husks. But yeah, there is certain types of sweet corn you can grow that is just, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Sow your seed 4 weeks prior to setting to the garden. Use bottom heat if possible. So if you do need to do it, and it says use peat pots or fiber pellets, something that you don't have to mess with the roots, and use bottom heat if possible. We have heard that in other ones as well. Another challenge with corn is its strong tendency to inbreeding depression, a reduction in quality of the plant over time if seed is not genetically diverse enough. Wow. So just like humans, if you keep it in the family, it gets weaker. You start having genetic defects. It's recommended that professional seed savers plant at least 200 plants, select the best, and save seed from at least 100 plants. If you save seed from a smaller sample, irreversible inbreeding will show up quickly, resulting in unsatisfactory plants. So from at least 100 different plants you want to collect your seeds from, just to keep that diversity going. Wow, very interesting. And that's all we have for the corn. So, I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I'm running over. I try to keep these not too long, about an hour. We went a little bit longer. Um, I love having the conversations in the chat with you guys. I love, being able to interact while I'm reading this stuff, because you guys bring up questions that I don't even think about, and it helps me as well. So I hope you learned something today. I did, definitely. Um, Again, we went over the complete guide to saving seeds um, from Story Publishing. They just a plug, for a great book. I just wanted to give you the publisher so you could find it. Hey, thanks, Daz. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Remember, plants are your food, or food is your medicine. Your medicine is your food. Get to know your plants. Create a relationship with them. The more love and intent that you put into your plants, the more you're going to get out of them. It's that easy. It's just like anything else. You give it love, you give it attention, you pay it attention. You give it that respect that it deserves, and it will feed you right back. It'll give you the nourishment and the love that you need, to keep our bodies healthy. When it's just like the rice experiment, you can not care for something at all, and it'll do okay. But if you love something, it absorbs that and stays fresh and healthier longer, and your plants won't get diseases as much. The pests won't be able to bother them as much. Just try it. Maybe with just one plant. See what happens. Grow two if you need to. Really love one, and just take care of another, and see what your outcomes are. I guarantee your mind will be blown. So that's it. I love you all. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing this, and I'm sure I'll be doing another one before the week's out, and hope to see you there. This is Good Times for All here, signing out. As always, thanks for watching. Whoa.